Have you ever wondered where the Moabites come from and how their story intertwines with the Israelites in the Bible? What unusual and complex origins connect these two groups? In the Bible, the Moabites trace their origins to an unusual and complex story beginning with Lot, Abraham's nephew. This narrative, found in Genesis 19 verses 30 to 38, reveals how Lot's descendants become the Moabites, who later settle in a region significant to biblical history. The Moabites hold a unique place in the biblical narrative, engaging in both positive and negative interactions with the Israelites, which profoundly shape their shared history in remarkable ways. Today, we're going to discuss the origins of the Moabites, which begins with the story of Lot and his two daughters. Later, we'll explore their unique and mixed relationship with the Israelites, with examples from the Bible, like the story of King Balak of Moab and the story of Ruth. We've put a lot of effort into gathering accurate details for you, so stay tuned for a deep look into these lesser-known biblical events and much more. Meanwhile, please subscribe to our channel, like the video, and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Whether it's diving into dramatic moments or revealing the significance of subtle details, we promise to spark your curiosity and make you see these stories in a whole new light. Now, let's begin. Lot, the nephew of Abraham and a one-time inhabitant of Sodom, stands as the ancestral patriarch of the Moabites. Sodom, along with its neighboring city Gomorrah, is notorious for its widespread corruption and moral depravity. In response to their sins, God decides to bring judgment upon these cities. When Abraham learns of the impending destruction, he pleads with God to spare the cities if even a few righteous people can be found there. Ultimately, only Lot and his family are spared. God sends two angels to warn Lot, urging him to flee with his wife and daughters to escape the coming disaster. As they flee, God rains down fire and brimstone, consuming Sodom and Gomorrah in a catastrophic display of divine judgment. In a tragic moment, Lot's wife looks back at the city and is turned into a pillar of salt, serving as a stark reminder of the irreversible destruction left behind. Following their escape, Lot and his two daughters seek refuge in the mountains, finding shelter in a secluded cave. At this critical moment, Lot's family believes they are the only survivors left in a devastated world. In the isolation of the cave, Lot's daughters face a profound dilemma. They fear their family line will end. In ancient cultures, lineage and inheritance are vital for social identity, status, and property rights. Without husbands or men to carry on the family line, they believe their lineage will die out. Thus, Lot's daughters, feeling desperate and isolated in the cave after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, take drastic measures to preserve their family lineage. With their home destroyed and no other men in sight, they believe they have no means to continue their family line. To them, the extinction of their lineage is a serious concern that demands urgent action. To achieve this, they devise a plan to conceive children with their father, Lot. On 2 consecutive nights, they get him drunk, believing this will prevent him from being aware of their actions. Their choice reflects the desperation of their situation and their determination to ensure their family's survival at any cost. Their actions raise significant ethical and moral questions as they proceed without Lot's knowledge or consent, highlighting the complexity and taboo nature of their decisions. Ultimately, their scheme results in the birth of 2 sons, Moab and Ben-Ammi, who become the ancestors of the Moabites and Ammonites, respectively. This moment is captured in Genesis 19, verses 36 to 38. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites of today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ammi. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. This passage directly links the origins of the Moabite and Ammonite peoples to Lot and his daughters, setting the stage for their future relationships with Israel. So the elder daughter of Lot gives birth to Moab, a name that means "from the father" or "from the seed of the father." This name reflects not only the complex and controversial circumstances of his conception, but also broader themes of survival and continuity in the biblical narrative. Moab's name carries deep significance, representing both an individual and the founding of a nation. Moab becomes the progenitor of the Moabite people, who settle in the region of Moab, located in the highlands east of the Jordan River and near the Dead Sea, corresponding to parts of modern-day Jordan. This area holds importance as a cultural and political center that frequently interacts with the Israelites through trade, conflict, and intermarriage. The Moabites' role in Israel's story is indeed complex, marked by both cooperation and conflict. Their interactions reveal not only the political and territorial tensions between neighboring nations, but also moments of alliance, mutual respect, and even intermarriage, underscoring the intricate relationship between the two groups. Now we will discuss in detail the positive and negative dimensions of the Moabites' interactions with Israel. The Moabites live in a fertile area just east of the Dead Sea, which helps their nation thrive but also leads to conflicts with the Israelites. In the Bible, Moab is depicted as a land of opportunity and mystery. Protected by mountains to the east, Moab benefits from natural fortifications and access to valuable mineral resources, making it a strategically significant region. Numbers 21, verses 11 to 13 further paint a picture of Moab's strategic placement. Then they set out from Oboth and camped in Iye Abarim, in the wilderness that faces Moab toward the sunrise. From there they moved on and camped in the Zered Valley. They set out from there and camped alongside the Arnon, which is in the wilderness extending into Amorite territory. The Arnon is the border of Moab between Moab and the Amorites. This passage highlights Moab as a borderland, an intersection between the wilderness and the more fertile settled lands of the region. As the Israelites journey to the Promised Land, Moab serves as both a cultural and political frontier. Positioned between the wilderness and fertile lands, it becomes a significant meeting point where different societies intersect. Passing through Moabite regions like Oboth and the Arnon River, the Israelites encounter tensions over overlapping territories, leading to a complex relationship marked by rivalry and wariness. In Numbers 22, verse 1, the narrative brings us to a pivotal moment. The Israelites traveled to the plains of Moab and camped along the Jordan across from Jericho. Here, the Israelites stood at the edge of their long-awaited homeland, directly across from Jericho. This location not only highlights Moab's strategic proximity to Canaan, but also marks a final stop before Israel's transition from wandering in the wilderness to stepping into their promised inheritance. Despite their conflicts, the Moabites and Israelites are related, both descending from Terah, the father of Abraham. Lot, the nephew of Abraham, is the father of Moab, which sometimes leads to diplomatic ties between the two peoples. This kinship does not stop tensions from arising. The initial discord stems from God's promise to Abraham of the land of Canaan, which includes the territory where the Moabites settle. This divine promise, central to the identity and mission of the Israelites, naturally causes apprehension among the Moabites. They perceive the Israelites as a potential threat to their sovereignty and way of life, while the Israelites view the Moabite territory as part of their divinely promised inheritance. One of the most prominent examples of Moabite antagonism appears in Numbers 22 to 24, where King Balak of Moab, alarmed by the Israelite encampment near his borders, seeks to undermine them through supernatural means. In an effort to protect Moab from what he perceives as a growing threat, Balak summons Balaam, a renowned prophet, to curse the Israelites. His fear and hostility toward Israel underscore the tension between the two nations as Israel's numbers and influence increased. However, despite Balak's insistence, Balaam finds himself unable to curse Israel. Instead, each attempt leads Balaam to pronounce blessings upon the Israelites, much to Balak's frustration. Through Balaam's visions, God reaffirms his protection over Israel, frustrating Moab's attempts at interference. Although Balaam ultimately blesses Israel instead of cursing them, this incident highlights Moab's hostility and fear regarding Israel's increasing influence. Following Balaam's failed attempt to curse Israel, the Moabites employed a more insidious tactic by luring the Israelites into idolatry and immoral behavior. Numbers 25 details how Moabite women enticed Israelite men into worshipping Baal of Peor, an act that went beyond political conflict and directly challenged Israel's covenant relationship with God. This seduction drew Israel into both religious compromise and moral corruption, threatening their dedication to the one true God. The consequences were severe. Divine judgment fell upon Israel, as the breach of faith invoked God's wrath. A plague broke out among the Israelites, resulting in significant loss of life until the sin was confronted and corrected. This incident revealed the deep-seated cultural and religious rift between Israel and Moab, with the latter's practices depicted as a corrupting influence that jeopardized Israel's spiritual purity. Throughout the time of the Judges, the relationship between Moab and Israel was marked by repeated conflict and cycles of oppression. In Judges 3, King Eglon of Moab gained control over Israel and imposed heavy oppression on them, leading to a period of subjugation that deeply affected the Israelite people. This oppression only ended when Ehud, one of Israel's judges, cleverly assassinated Eglon in a daring act of liberation. Ehud's victory sparked a successful revolt, freeing Israel from Moabite control and setting a precedent for resistance against foreign dominance. The animosity between the Moabites and Israelites did not end there, however. As Israel transitioned from a loose tribal confederation to a united monarchy, conflicts with Moab continued, especially during the period of the kings. Frequent skirmishes and battles erupted as both nations sought to assert their influence and control over strategically important territories along their shared borders. Interestingly, despite the tensions, there were moments of positive interaction between the Moabites and Israelites. One of the most significant examples of positive Moabite-Israelite relations is found in the story of Ruth. Ruth, a Moabite woman, marries Boaz, an Israelite, and becomes a key figure in Israel's history as the great-grandmother of King David. The book of Ruth opens with the context of famine during the days of the Judges, noting, "In the days when the Judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. Thus, Bethlehem, the house of bread, ironically has no food. An Israelite man named Elimelech, along with his wife Naomi and their 2 sons, are forced to leave their homeland to survive. They travel to a foreign country, Moab. Elimelech makes the decision to move his family to Moab out of sheer necessity. In ancient Israel, a famine would have been devastating, especially in an agricultural society that relied heavily on the land's produce. As the head of his household, Elimelech feels the responsibility to ensure the survival of his wife, Naomi, and their 2 sons. The famine in Bethlehem leaves him with few options, and Moab presents a chance to find food and stability for his family. But Moab isn't just any neighboring nation. Despite being nearby, Moab is culturally and religiously distinct from Israel, and had a complicated history with Israel. However, for Elimelech, the need to provide for his family outweighs these concerns. Just when they thought they had found safety in Moab, tragedy strikes. Elimelech, the pillar of the family, dies, leaving Naomi devastated and alone in a foreign land. Yet, life doesn't stop. Mahlon and Chilion, Naomi's sons, marry Moabite women. And here, in this unlikely setting, we first meet Ruth. Ruth's introduction in the Bible is brief at first. In Ruth 1 verse 4 we read, "They married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth." This is where we are first introduced to Ruth, though at this point we have no idea that this Moabite woman would soon make a decision that would change everything. Ruth marries Mahlon, one of Naomi's sons, and begins her married life in Moab. But the hardship doesn't stop with the death of Naomi's husband, Elimelech. After about 10 years, both of Naomi's sons, Mahlon and Chilion, die as well, leaving Ruth and Orpah as widows alongside Naomi. Now, imagine this. Naomi is crushed, living in a foreign land, with no husband, no sons, and no future. At this moment, Naomi finds herself devastated. But then, she hears a glimmer of hope, news that the famine in Bethlehem is over. Word spreads that God has provided for his people, bringing food and abundance to the land. This news stirs something in Naomi. With nothing left for her in Moab, no family to depend on, she decides to return to her homeland. Bethlehem, once a place of scarcity, now offers her a chance at survival and the possibility of rebuilding her life within her community. So, Naomi begins her journey back to Bethlehem, accompanied by her two daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah. Although Naomi is grieving and has no male protector, this act of returning is a step of faith, showing her trust in God's provision. The women set out together on the road to Judah, representing both physical and emotional journeys. At some point during the journey, Naomi stops and urges Ruth and Orpah to return to Moab. She realizes that life will be hard for her, especially as an older widow. She also recognizes the difficulties of life in Bethlehem for two young Moabite women. Naomi lovingly releases them from any sense of obligation toward her, asking them to return to their own families in Moab, where they might have better chances to remarry and rebuild their lives. She blesses them, asking that God show them kindness, just as they had shown to her and their deceased husbands. Naomi prays that Ruth and Orpah find a place of security, provision, and peace in the home of future husbands. She understands that remarriage would be the best way for them to secure their future in that society. Despite Naomi's instructions, both Ruth and Orpah initially refuse to leave her. They are both loyal to Naomi and express their desire to return with her to Bethlehem, choosing to stay by her side despite the uncertainty awaiting them in Judah. Naomi, however, insists that they return to Moab. She appeals to practicality, recognizing that her age prevents her from having any more sons who could become husbands for Ruth and Orpah under the custom of levirate marriage, which required a brother of a deceased man to marry the widow to continue the family line. In Ruth 1 verses 11 to 13, Naomi paints a realistic picture for her daughters-in-law, urging them to consider their future prospects, which would be better in Moab. Orpah, though reluctant, eventually agrees and stays behind in Moab. But Ruth makes a bold and unexpected choice. She refuses to leave Naomi. Not only that, she makes a declaration that would echo through history, and this declaration marks the beginning of Ruth's remarkable journey. In Ruth 1, verses 16 to 17, she says to Naomi, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." This wasn't just an expression of loyalty, it was a total transformation. Ruth, a Moabite, a foreigner, chooses to leave everything behind and embrace Naomi's people, Naomi's land, and most importantly, Naomi's God. Dear listeners, think about that for a moment. Ruth, a Moabite woman from a nation known for pagan worship, is willing to leave it all behind. What drives a person to make such a bold choice? It's a decision rooted in love, faith, and the belief that there's more to life than what we see. After a long and heart-wrenching journey, Naomi and Ruth finally arrive in Bethlehem. Imagine the scene, a small town buzzing with curiosity as the two women, returning from a foreign land, step into their old life. Naomi, once a joyful wife and mother, is now a widow who feels empty. But Ruth, she's a Moabite, a foreigner in a land where people view her heritage with suspicion. The Israelites had historical animosities with the Moabites, so Ruth's presence could evoke mixed feelings among the locals. Despite the challenges, Ruth does not shy away from her new reality. Instead, she steps forward with determination and resilience. Understanding the dire situation she and Naomi face, Ruth takes the initiative to provide for them. She decides to glean in the fields, a practice allowed under Israelite law, where the poor and foreigners could collect leftover grain after the harvesters had finished. This task, however, is not without its risks. For a foreign woman like Ruth, gleaning could be dangerous due to the potential for mistreatment or harassment in a male-dominated environment. Yet, Ruth bravely engages in this humble work. Her actions demonstrate her strong character and loyalty, setting the stage for the unfolding of her remarkable story in Bethlehem. Here, Ruth, the Moabite widow, impresses Boaz, a wealthy relative of her late father-in-law, who could become her kinsman redeemer to preserve the family line. Following Naomi's guidance, Ruth courageously approaches Boaz for protection. Moved, Boaz agrees, but must first ensure no other relative claims this right. When the closer relative declines, Boaz marries Ruth, and they have a son, Obed, the grandfather of King David. Yes, Ruth, the foreigner, the Moabite woman, becomes the great-grandmother of Israel's greatest king and is included in the lineage of Jesus Christ himself. Thus, a Moabite woman from a pagan land becomes a key part of God's redemptive plan for all humanity. Ruth's story reminds us that no matter where we come from or what our background is, God can use anyone who is willing to trust him. The Book of Ruth captures the kindness, loyalty, and faith of Ruth, illustrating that Moabites, despite their outsider status, could play a significant and honorable role in Israel's lineage and legacy. In some instances, the Moabites joined forces with Israel against common enemies. For example, in 2 Kings 3, Israel, Judah, and Edom aligned against Moab in an attempt to maintain peace and order in the region, illustrating that shared interests occasionally brought these nations together. Thanks for watching, everyone. The story of Moab's birth and the rise of the Moabite nation introduce various narratives in the Bible, highlighting themes of lineage, identity, and the interconnected fates of various peoples in the ancient Near East. The Moabites' interactions with Israel remind us that even in a context of conflict, individual relationships can break through boundaries, contributing to a broader, redemptive narrative in Israel's history. They serve as both a cautionary tale about external influences and as a testament to the power of individual loyalty and faith, as seen in Ruth's story. If you found this video insightful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into biblical stories. Have you ever felt like there's so much more to the stories you thought you knew? On our channel, we discuss the untold layers and hidden meanings behind some of the most captivating narratives in the Bible. Each episode invites you to explore the deeper emotions, conflicts, and mysteries that shaped the lives of people in ancient times. From family rivalries to miraculous moments, we explore the stories behind the scenes, giving you a fresh perspective on these ancient texts. Our episodes are designed to spark your curiosity and make you think about the deeper meanings behind these timeless tales. So, if you're ready to see the Bible in a whole new light, come and explore with us. You won't want to miss a single episode. And as always, feel free to drop your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep questioning and keep exploring.